Over 50% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck and having a hard time paying their bills. And you might think that it's just an income problem, but clearly it's not, because a little over 1/3 of all Americans that make over $100,000 a year are also living to paycheck. In addition, half of all of Americans don't even have $1,000 in savings. And so that's why we're here today, folks. So today is the first episode, mostly an intro episode to my new podcast and some of my YouTube content. My podcast is called Finding Affluence, and that's what you're listening to right now. You might be watching it on YouTube channel, which is Mark Wygant. But my name is Mark Wygant. I'm your host, and I appreciate you tuning in here today. I wanted to share those stats with you because that's really at the core of why I'm making this content, why I created this podcast, why I'm creating the YouTube content, why I create all the content across social media and develop the different resources, mostly all for free for people to go ahead and research and look up and take advantage of so that they become financially literate and can make their own decisions with their finances and better their lives. And so I want to start off with a couple things. First of all, our mission statement. I think it starts right here. I developed this mission statement a little while back, and I think it's super important because, again, it speaks to the core after hearing those stats, right? So our mission, my mission here, is that we empower individuals to take control of their personal finances and live a life of freedom through education, inspiration, and execution of actionable strategies. So I'll repeat that one more time. Our mission is we empower individuals to take control of their finances and live a life of freedom through education, inspiration, and actionable strategies. And so I think that's super important. A life of freedom. And I mean financial freedom. I mean freedom from other things. And we teach it through education. Knowledge is power, right? Inspiration, right? So inspiring you, letting you visually be able to see and articulate that it is possible, right? And then to keep that discipline. And then through execution of actionable strategies. So giving you things that actually really work and breaking it down simple, hopefully, so that everybody can understand and take something of value away from it. And so our vision here is to lift up and create a community of individuals that have the knowledge, tools, and confidence to make informed financial decisions and achieve financial independence. And so I think that's really important. And there is nuance to all of this, but there is a difference here, right? So I subscribe to the theory that you shouldn't just leave your finances to someone else, right? I don't think that, at least not until you fully understand money, the psychology of money, and then the basics of investing, the basics of personal finance. Until then, you shouldn't just send it off and trust somebody else with it, right? Like that, you wouldn't do that with almost anything else in your life. But because of school and society and bad information from parents, that's right, parents and other people in our lives, we're scared of money for some reason, or we think it's super complicated, or only really smart people can deal with it, or if you're not wealthy, you're never going to be wealthy, and so it doesn't make any sense to learn about it anyway. Or you think that you don't have enough money to invest, and all these other different things that we're going to talk about at length in other content and other videos. Those are all the things that have people lacking the confidence. So I want to break it down, make it digestible, make it very easy, hopefully, to understand, right? So that you get the most value out of it. But again, I believe that you should spend 20, 40, 100 hours at a minimum understanding personal finance, because as you improve your financial situation, you get time back, hopefully. You get different forms of freedom back, hopefully. You have optionality, right? Which is what most people want. Whenever you feel stuck, you get angry, you feel frustrated, all those other things. If you can value, your money and you can be responsible with it and you have a good baseline of personal finance and you understand all the makings of it, more times than not, you will be successful with money. You'll get more freedom, specifically time freedom. You'll have optionality. You'll be able to do the things that you want to do. And I'm not talking about being buku rich or extremely wealthy either. I'm talking about just being X amount of percent better off than you are today. And just as importantly, knowing that you actually have a clear path forward to win with your personal finances. So that's my goal here. If you've stuck around this long, I really appreciate it. You can go ahead and check out some of the different links in the description wherever you're watching this or listening to this. I'll have links to, one, subscribe and like the podcast, share it with people. It's the only way that it gets out there from the algorithm gods. You got to share it with people. You got to like it if it provides you any value, and it hopefully, if it does, you'll be happy to share with it. You'll pay that price because it will help your friends, it'll help your family, it'll help other strangers that you've never met before get better with their money. So please check out all the different links, the Twitter handle, all those different things that are in there, and subscribe to all those, please. Moving forward, I want to go ahead and introduce myself, okay? I'm your host. I'm the one that's going to be creating this content, responding to comments, giving my thought, giving my opinion, bringing different types of education and information, to these platforms to share with you. And so my name is Mark Wygant. I live in Michigan currently. I grew up in a pretty traditional Midwest fashion, I would say. And I don't say this lightly, but on average, most people come from semi-broken homes. My parents were divorced very, very young before I could even remember, multiple different stepmoms and dads, kind of that broken home a little bit. We had neither parent graduated from high school. Both worked very hard, okay? So they were head down and worked hard. My mother as a bartender majority of her life working night shifts. My father, different types of jobs, but over-the-road truck driver, pipe layer, different things like that, right? A cook, just different things to make ends meet, but always worked hard. Being in that kind of class, there typically isn't a ton of good relationship with money. So my family, if we had any money, we didn't have a good relationship with it, right? Didn't understand how to keep it and make it grow and stack it and understand all those finances. Didn't really fully grasp how to maximize our earning potential, learn income, high value skills to increase our income, things like that. Spent it on a lot of vices, things like cigarettes and alcohol and other things, just things like that. So, I think that's how a lot of people grow up, not just in the Midwest either, in the South, out West, different places like that. So I know what that feels like. I'm not that far removed from it, right? And I certainly spent the majority of my teenage years, my young adulthood, and my adulthood trying to break away from all of that and change my relationship with money, change my relationship with a lot of other different, mindsets as well. And then, ultimately, and I don't say this lightly either, but change my family tree, right? So that the next generation is better than I am, right? And that kind of thing. And so that's what I hope I can bring to this channel and to this content, and for everybody here that's watching, is that type of value. But again, a little bit more about me. So I grew up in the Midwest. From there, like I said, my parents didn't graduate from high school, and just because of different things, growing up in life, really a motivator for me wasn't necessarily what did I want to do or what did I want to become. It was really more of 100% what I did not want to be, or what I did not want to become, or what I did not want to do, or the type of relationship with money and people and different vices that I knew I just didn't want to have, right? And that's not saying I was perfect on any of that, and it didn't take me a while to get away from certain things, but I at least knew I wanted to run away from this, right? And I wanted to run that way. And so for me, that meant I graduated high school. I kept my nose out of trouble for the most part. Again, I wasn't perfect. But then I went to college, and my grandmother was a huge influence in that. She really pushed me to go, and I went. And we're going to talk about college and student loan debts at length on this channel. So we won't talk about that now, but I think you'll be shocked at my feelings of college and going into debt for college and that kind of thing. But I'll share that for later. But I did go to college, and shout out to the college that I went to for my undergrad. It's called Northwood University. I have no affiliation with them other than I'm an alumni and a very proud alumni of that school. They are a free enterprise, free thinking, a mostly conservative, small business school. And so they do a very good job at bringing in industry experts who lived in real life business, okay, and understand money, understand finance, accounting, understand business, sales, marketing, all of those things. And they bring in real world experts as their faculty. And it's a smaller group of kids. It's tucked back in the middle of the woods in Midland, Michigan. For any of you parents or individuals that are, thinking about continuing education, if you're interested in checking them out, check them out. My guess is they're probably online now. Back when I went to school, they were not online, but great school. So I went there, I got my BBA, Bachelor's in Business Administration, and then I went to work. I went to work and I worked for an organization up until very recently for about a decade, a little bit more than a decade actually. And I started off in recruiting, and I recommend that as well as a career for anybody that's young, coming out of college, or even without college. It does a lot of things. It teaches you a ton about grit, teaches you phone skills, communication skills, sales skills, closing skills. It teaches you everything, a little bit of marketing, certainly office politics, what customers are willing to pay money for, how to influence and persuade individuals and clients. So I worked my way up through recruiting into several different leadership and management roles on that side of the business, and then I flipped over to the sales side of the business, where I spent the majority of my career there at that organization in a mid to senior level director role, managing sales teams, blue chip clients, client solutions managers and whatnot for that organization, and learned a ton, got tons of repetitions underneath my belt, great experience, closed a lot of deals, grew a lot of businesses, made friends, all those types of things. So I did that. So as you can see, I'm a typical W-2 wage earner for the majority of my life as well. I started working at 14 and worked my way up through my first actual W-2 on the books, because at 14 I was power washing and washing windows. My first W-2 job was at a pizza place of a good friend of mine. His dad owned it. And I think our pay was $5.25 an hour. Again, worked my way up there to a shift lead. And what was great is if there was another shift lead on schedule, you could also be the delivery driver, but still get your shift lead pay. And so I thought I was rolling it in, man. But fast forward, so I worked for this company that I just recently stopped working with. I learned a lot. Right. And so, but in that time, in that 11-year period, my wife was going to school to be a pharmacist, and she was racking up truckloads of debt to do that, which we will talk about at length on this show. During that time that happened, as she graduated, all those payments were going to come due. We owed probably a little over $300,000 in student loans, and that's shocking to most people. But again, we learned from our mistakes, and hopefully we could teach others behind us to either shorten that learning curve or not have to make those mistakes altogether, right? Like, because I learned it the hard way, you don't have to type thing. As she graduated, we were kind of forced. We were staring down the barrel of a gun that says, okay, you owe thousands of dollars a month in student loan payments, but you live in South Florida, you don't really make that great of an income yet. What are you gonna do? So we moved. We made a very intentional decision that we were not going to be handcuffed and enslaved to this debt for the next 20 to 40 years, or hell, even maybe for the rest of our entire life. And so we moved to a lower cost of living area. We got things in order to where we could just pump away at paying that debt off. And so we did that. And we're going to talk about that, like I said, at length. But we did that. In addition, that same time period, I kept working for the organization that I was working for, and also was able to start building a rental portfolio. We didn't have a real strong retirement or anything else like that at that organization. So my partner and I, believed like, hey, let's control our own destiny, which is a big theme here that I'll talk about a lot. And we started investing in real estate. So we got to 20 doors between 2016 and 2020 or 21, kind of stayed there for the last year or two. And then we started liquidating. My partner's, life situation changed quite a bit. And so we've liquidated quite a bit. I'm still going to retain some, but so I'm kind of at a different phase in the real estate investing. I also run an Airbnb, and that we'll talk about a lot here too. In addition to all of that, we welcomed 2 baby girls. So I have 2 daughters during the same time period while we were paying off that debt. And so that kind of leads us to today, where I'm starting this podcast, this YouTube channel, all the social media content that I'm putting out there in the hopes that through all of my life experiences in business and real estate investing, in career management, in sales, in negotiating, in all of those things, personal finance first and foremost, my intention here is to hopefully just share so much knowledge, break it down into bite-sized bits that are actionable things, and that it helps you, it helps your family, it helps your friends, it helps your next generation. And if I can do that, I'll be a happy man. And so with that being said, the name of the podcast is Finding Affluence, okay? And I named it that intentionally. When people think of affluence, they think of tons of wealth, they think of tons of money, those types of things, right? However, if you break it down, it's really an abundance of something, okay? So I named this podcast Finding Affluence. My Facebook group is called Finding Affluence. And to me, what it means, and I hope that maybe this can articulate out as well, and hopefully it means the same thing for you, but finding, is seeking. You're on a journey to find abundance. Okay, so abundance in all aspects of your life. Financial, peace, financial, personal finance, financial success is only one pillar in an abundant life, right? And in a successful life. Your health, right? Your spirituality, your relationships, all of those other things are also included in finding affluence. While we might have a heavier concentration on the personal finance aspect and the business aspect and the real estate investing aspect on the show, we will also be talking about all of those other pillars when it makes sense, and I think I can provide you value, right, with special guests or things like that in all those other aspects, because to me, that's actually finding affluence, seeking it out, being on a journey for a life of fulfillment and abundance, right? And that's my definition of success. So again, if you stuck with me this whole time, I really, really, really appreciate it. Follow me on YouTube, on Twitter. I'm very active on Twitter, Instagram as well. I have that Facebook group where we're sharing knowledge. We have tons of infographics, actionable advice, things like that. So again, my name's Mark Wygant. I'm your host. I really appreciate it. Thank you all.